In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
The remains of earlier temples. Yet another new adventure occurred. Wide meadows spread out before me. A carpet of flowers, soft hills, a fresh green wood in the distance. I come across two strange journeymen. Probably two completely accidental companions, an old monk and a tall and gangly thin man with a childish gait and discolored red clothes. As they draw near, I recognize the tall one as the Red Rider. How he has changed. He has grown old. His red hair has become gray and his fiery red clothes are worn out, shabby, poor. In the other, he has a paunch and appears not to have fallen on bad times, but his face seems familiar. By all the gods, it's Ammonius. What changes? And where are these utterly different people coming from? I approach them and bid them good day, and both look at me frightened and make the sign of the cross. Their horror prompts me to look down at myself, and I'm fully covered in green leaves, which sprang from my body. I greet them a second time, laughing. Ammonius exclaims, horrified, "A page Satanus!" And the red one, "Damned pagan riffraff!" And I say, "But, my dear friends, what is wrong with you? I am the Hyperborean stranger who visited with you, O Ammonius in the desert. And I am the watchman whom you, red one, visited." And Ammonius says, "I recognize you, you supreme devil. My downfall began with you." And the red one looks at him reproachfully and gives him a poke in the ribs, and the monk sheepishly stops. And the red one turns haughtily, like John Kerry, towards me. And the Red Rider says, "Already at that time, I couldn't help thinking that you lacked a noble disposition, notwithstanding your hypocritical seriousness, your damned Christian play act." At another moment, Ammonius pokes him in the ribs, and the red one falls into an embarrassed silence, and thus both stand before me, sheepish and ridiculous, and yet pitiful. I say, "Wherefrom, man, God, what outrageous fate has led you here, let alone in the company of the Red One?" Ammonius says, "I would prefer not to tell you, but it does not appear to be a dispensation of God that one can escape. So then that you, an evil spirit, have done me a terrible deed. You seduced me with your accursed curiosity, desirously stretching my hand after the divine mysteries. Since you made me conscious at the time that I really knew nothing about them. Your remark that I probably needed a closeness of men to arrive at the higher mysteries stunned me like an infernal poison. Soon thereafter, I called the brothers of the valley together and announced to them that a messenger of God has appeared to me so terribly that you blinded me and commanded me to form a monastery with the brothers. When the brother Philetus raised an objection, I refuted him with a reference to the passage in the Holy Scriptures where it is said that it is not good for man to be alone. So we founded this monastery near the Nile where we could see the passing ships. We cultivated fat fields. There was so much to do that the Holy Scriptures fell into oblivion. We became voluptuous. And one day I was filled with such terrible longing to see Alexandria again. And I talked myself into believing that I wanted to visit the bishop there. But first I was intoxicated so much by life on the ship, but then by the milling crowds of the street of Alexandria, that I became completely lost.
The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks again. We're continuing. This is the Abracast, and I'm John Towers. So we're continuing our descent into the Red Book here, Liber, Novus, of one Carl Gustav Jung. And why did I do this? I really asked myself why I decided to do this. And it's a story about a guy having, lots of shit happens, right? It's a story about a guy having a mental breakdown and finding or refinding his soul. And, we're living in a time where the Muppets are... the fucking Muppets have viewer discretionary warnings on them. We're canceling fucking Dr. Seuss. And I think that as a culture, we need to do this undertaking like Jung did. We need to take a journey and refine our soul. This cancel culture, this all this big tech censorship, and everybody seems to be on board with it. And I'm just looking around like, what the fuck are we doing? So that's why we're doing this. After the election and all the nonsense, I was like, I'm going to put everything aside and we're going to talk about refinding one's soul, doing the shadow work we need to do to get out from under this hive mind, for lack of a better word, like totalitarianism. That's just, it's seeping, it's everywhere. We need to be polite to each other. We need to be humble with each other, and we need to refine our soul, whatever that means. So I guess I felt like maybe I needed to explain why we're going on month 3 of this Red Book. And I hope that, without me explaining it, so I hope that you guys are getting something out of this other than this weird story of this guy having a schizophrenia, as he puts it. So yeah, we're just gonna dive back in. I want to get it done by the end of March, so we still have yeoman's work to do. Let's get after. Let's find our soul. Refind it. Let's find that bitch soul. Where was I? Oh, Jung has found his 2 old kind of friends, and they are getting older and punchier. And he is going through a renewal. He's got sticks and twigs and leaves coming out of his body. He's in some kind of, they're in their twilight, it would appear, and he's going through a new sort of beginning, becoming like a lettuce character or something. Here we go, back to it. As in a dream, I climbed onto a large ship bound for... This is Ammonius still... He's telling his story. A large ship bound for Italy. I felt insatiable greed to see the world. I drank wine and I saw that women were beautiful, and I wallowed in pleasure and wholly turned into an animal. Fuck yeah. When I climbed ashore in Naples, the Red One stood there, and I knew that I had fallen into the hands of evil. The rider says, the Red Rider says, "Be silent, you old fool. If I had not been present, you would have become an outright pig. What you saw in me, you finally pulled yourself together, cursed the drinking, nay, and the women, no, and returned to the monastery. Now hear my story, damned hobgoblin. I too fell into your snare, and your pagan arts also enticed me. After the conversation at the time where you caught me in the fox trap with your remark about dancing, I became serious, so serious that I went into the monastery and I prayed and I fasted and I converted myself. In my blindness, I wanted to reform the church liturgy. And with the bishop's approval, I introduced dancing. I became an abbot as such, alone had the sole right to dance before the altar like David before the Ark of the Covenant. But little by little, the brothers also began to dance indeed, even the congregation of the faithful, and finally the whole city danced, and it was terrible. I fled into solitude, and I danced all day. I danced all day until I dropped. But in the morning, the hellish dance began again. I sought. Have you guys ever been to a Southern Baptist church, by the way? Not like the Ohio, New Life Baptist Church in Elyria, Ohio, where Pastor Larry Solomon would preach. Not in a church like that, brother, but I mean like a deep South Southern Baptist Church. I lived in Georgia when I was a lad. I was one of 6 white kids in a school, and I paid for it every fucking day. Anyhow, we went. My mom, I mentioned a million times that she tried to raise me in the Southern Baptist Church in Elyria, Ohio, at the New Life Baptist Church. And when I wasn't there, I was with my grandparents at the Open Door Baptist Church in North Bridgeville, Ohio. Anyhow, yeah, going to a black Southern Baptist church is fucking something else, man. Anyhow, and it's this dancing is what I'm talking. Okay, so, God, get it together, bro. I sought to escape from myself and strayed and wandered around at night. In the daytime, I kept myself secluded and danced alone in the forests and the deserted mountains, and thus gradually came to Italy. Down there in the south, I no longer felt as if I had in the north. I could mingle with crowds. Only in Naples did I somewhat find my way again, and there I also found this ragged man of God. His appearance gave me strength. Through him I could regain my health, and you've heard how he took heart from me too, and found his way again. Ammonius says, I must confess, I did not fare so badly with this Red One. He toned it down a type of devil. And the writer says, I must add that the monk hardly the fanatical type, although I've developed a deep aversion against the whole Christian religion since my experience in the monastery. My glutes are still tired from all this dancing. And I said, dear friends, it does my heart good to see you enjoying yourselves together. And they both say, we are not pleased, mocker and adversary. Clear off, you robber, pagan. And I say, but why are you traveling together if you're not enjoying each other's company and friendship? And Ammonius says, what can be done? Even the devil is necessary, since otherwise one has nothing that commands a sense of respect with people. Well, I need to come to an arrangement with the clergy or else I will lose my clientele, the writer says. And I say, therefore, the necessities of life have brought you together, so let's make peace and be friends. And both of them say, but we can never be friends. We can never be friends. Oh, Carl Gustav Jung says, oh, I see the system is at fault. You probably want to die out first. Now let me pass, you old ghosts. He's done with it. He's like, fuck you guys. When I had seen death and all the terrible solemnity that is gathered around it, I had become ice. And night myself, an angry life, an impulse rose up in me. My thirst for the rushing water of the deepest knowledge began to clink with wine glasses. From afar, I heard drunken laughter, laughing women and street noises, dancing, music, stamping, and cheering poured forth from all over, and instead of the rose-scented south wind, the reek of the human animal streamed over me. Luscious, lewd whores giggled and rustled along the walls, wine fumes and kitchen steam, and the foolish cackling of the human crowd drew near in a cloud. Hot, sticky, tender hands reached out for me. Man, this guy knows how to party. And I was swaddled in the covers of a sickbed, and I was born into a life from below, and I grew up as heroes do in hours rather than years. And after I had grown up, I found myself in the Middle Land and saw that it was spring. Here's to whores and giggling and kitchen smells. But I was no longer the man I had been, for a strange being grew through me. This was a laughing being of the forest, the green demon, a forest goblin and a prankster who lived alone in the forest and was itself a greening tree being, who loved nothing but greeting and growing, and who were neither disposed or indisposed towards men, full of mood and chance, obeying an invisible law and greening the wilting with the trees. Neither beautiful nor ugly, neither good nor bad, merely living primordially old and yet completely young, naked and yet naturally clothed. Not man, but nature, frightened, laughable, powerful, childish, weak, deceiving, and deceived, utterly inconsistent and superficial, and yet reaching deep down to the kernel of the world. I had absorbed the life of both of my friends. A green tree grew from the ruins of the temple and had not withstood life, but seduced by life, becoming their own monkey business. They had got caught in the muck, and so they called the living a devil and a traitor, because both of them believed in themselves and their own goodness. Each in his own way, they ultimately became mired in the natural and conclusive burial ground of outlived ideals. Most beautiful and the best, like the ugliest and the worst, end up someday in the most laughable place in the world, surrounded by fancy dress and led by fools, and go horror-struck into a pit of filth. Wow. After the cursing comes laughter, so that the soul is saved from the dead. Ideals are, according to their essence, desired and pondered. They exist to this extent, but only to this extent, yet their effective being cannot be denied. We know he who believes he is really living his ideals, or believes that he can live them, suffers from delusions of grandeur and behaves like a lunatic, that he stages himself as an ideal. But the hero has fallen. Ideals are mortal. No one should prepare oneself for their end. At the same time, it probably cost you your neck For do you not see that it was you who gave meaning, value, and effective force to your ideal? If you have become a sacrifice to the ideal cracks open, plays carnival with you, and goes to hell on Ash Wednesday. Hold on, I gotta write this down. I love this line. Goes to hell on Ash Wednesday. The ideal is also a tool that one can put aside anytime, a torch on dark paths. But whoever runs around with a torch by day is a fool. How much my ideals have come down, and how freshly my tree greens. When I turned green, I stood there, and I said, remains of earlier temples, the rose gardens, and I recognized with a shudder the inner affinity. It seemed to me that they had established an indecent alliance, but I understood that this alliance had already existed for a long time. At the time when I still claimed that my sanctuaries were of crystal purity, and when I compared my friends to the perfume of roses of Persia, both of them formed an alliance of mutual silence. They seemed to scatter, but secretly they worked together. The solitary silence of the temple lured me away from men to supernatural mysteries in which I lost myself to the point of surefit. I don't know what that means. All right. The solitary silence of the temple lured me far away from men to the supernatural mysteries in which I lost myself to the point of surefit. Surefit means an excessive amount of something. A surefit of food and drink, by example. Or a verb caused someone to desire no more of something as a result of having consumed or done it to excess. And while I struggled with God, the devil prepared himself for my reception and tore me just as far from his side there too. I found no boundaries other than surefit and disgust. I did not live, but was driven. I was a slave to my ideals. And thus they stood there, the ruins, quarreling with one another and unable to reconcile themselves in their common misery. Within myself, I had become one of the natural beings, but I was a hobgoblin who frightened the solitary wanderer and who avoided the places of men. But I greened and bloomed from within myself. I had still not become a man again who carried within himself the conflict between longing for the world and a longing for the spirit. I did not live either of these longings, but I lived myself, and I was merely greening tree in a remote spring forest. And thus I learned to live without the world and spirit, and I was amazed how well I could live like this. But what about men? What about mankind? There they stood, the two desecrated bridges that would lead across to mankind. One leads from above and one leads from below, and the men glide on it, which pleased them. The other leads from below to above, and mankind groans upwards on it. To cause them trouble, we drive our fellow men to trouble and joy. And if I myself do not live merely, but merely climb, it gives others undeserved. It's like, I didn't plan to talk about this cancel culture business that I opened the show with. But this shit it's calling out for a discussion. It gives others undeserved pleasure. Hold on. If I myself do not live but merely climb, it gives others undeserved pleasure. If I simply enjoy myself, it causes others undeserved trouble. If I merely live I am far removed from them. They no longer see me, and when they see me, they are astonished and shocked. I will add, and outraged. I myself, however, quite simply living, greening, blooming, fading, standing like a tree, always in the same spot, and let the suffering and the joy of men pass over me with equanimity. And yet I am a man who cannot excuse himself from the discord of the human heart. But my ideals can also be my dogs, whose yapping and squabbling do not disturb me, but at least then I am good. And a bad dog to men. I have not yet achieved what should be, namely that I live and I am yet a man. It seems to be nearly impossible to live as a man as long as you are not conscious of yourself. You can live, but you can become conscious of yourself. You fall from one grave into another. All your rebirths could ultimately make you sick. The Buddha, therefore, finally gave up on rebirth, for he had enough crawling through all human and animal forms, and after all the rebirths, you still remain the lion crawling on the earth, the chameleon, a caricature of one prone to changing colors, crawling, shimmering lizard, but you're not a lion, whose nature is related to the sun, who draws his power from within himself, who does not crawl around in the protective colors of the environment, and who does not defend himself by going into hiding. I recognize the chameleon and no longer want to crawl on the earth, change the colors, and be reborn. Instead, I want to exist from my own force, like the sun, which gives light and does not suck it. Does not suck light. It belongs to the earth. I recall my solar nature and would like to rush to my rising but ruins and stand in my way. They say, with regard to men, you should be this or that. My chameleon-esque skin shudders. They obtrude upon me and want to color me. They should no longer be. Neither good nor evil shall be my masters. I push them aside, the laughable survivors, and I go my own way. I go my own way. Go your own way, which leads me to the east, the quarreling powers that for so long stood between me and myself lie behind me. Henceforth, I am completely alone. I can no longer say to you, listen, or you should, or you could, but now I talk only with myself. Now, no one else can do anything more for me. Nothing whatsoever. I no longer have duty towards you, and you no longer have duties towards me. And since I vanish and you vanish from me, I now no longer hear requests and no longer make requests of you. I no longer fight and reconcile myself with you, but place silence between you and me. Your call dies away in the distance, and you cannot find my footprints. Together, in the west wind which comes from the plains of the ocean, I journey across the green countryside. I roam through the forest and bend the young grass, and I talk with the trees of the forest wildlife, and the stones show me the way. When I thirst and the source does not come to me, I go to the source. And when I starve and the bread does not come to me, I seek the bread and take it wherever I find it. I provide no help, and I need no help. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's awesome. I provide no help, and I need no help. If at any time necessity confronts me, I do not look around to see whether there are helpers nearby. Oh, brother. But I accept the necessity, and I bend, and I writhe, and I struggle, and I laugh, and I weep, and I swear. But I do not look around me. On this way, no one walks behind me, and I cross no one's path. I am alone, but I feel my solitariness with my life. I am man enough. I am noise, conversation, comfort, and help enough unto myself. And I so wander the far east. Not that I know anything about my distant goal, about what my distant goal might be, but I see the blue horizons before me, and they suffice as a goal. I hurry towards the east, and my rising, and I will my rising. God, this is so, I'm ready here, fucking good. Turning out to be a politics show after all.
Learn more at Abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at Subscribestar.com.
All right, I'm just going to take a second here to ask you guys to check out Abracast.com. You can find a featured topic link that has all the shows that we've done in any specific topic in sort of a chronological order, starting from the bottom of the category up. So, I mean, there's a growing section of Carl Gustav Jung in there. So check that out, and while you're there, visit the storefront of tarot cards. I designed a set of tarot cards that are pretty fly. You can say that still? No, of course not. Anyhow, but the tarot cards are cool. Even if you want to just check out the images and stuff, they're all on display on the website. And if you want to read I don't know if it's a book, the information that I put together regarding tarot cards, and read my little entries for my major arcana cards. All you got to do is sign to the mailing list. You get a link, take you to a Google Doc of all that stuff. The mailing list is suffering. Please continue to sign up for it, but I haven't put anything out all year so far yet. So I'm just trying to find time, bros. Okay, so. Anything else? T-shirts. T-shirt designs are up. I just put an order in for the Baphomet As Above, So Below shirt. And I got the tarot card back, which is basically a map to how the universe fucking works. And, what's the other one I got? Oh, I ordered the Fuck Off Sigil shirt. I can't wait. I have a tough discussion coming up next week, and I'm gonna wear the shirt while I'm having this discussion. So, on the first day, on the third night, a desolate mountain range blocks my way through a narrow valley gorge. It allows me to enter the way. Leads inevitably between two high rock faces, and my feet are bare and injure themselves on the jagged rocks. Here, the path becomes slippery. One half of the way is white, the other black. And I step onto the black side and recoil, horrified. It is hot iron. I step into the white half, and it is ice. So I must dart across and onward, and finally the valley widens into a mighty rocky basin. A narrow path widens along vertical rocks on the mountain ridge at the top. So speaking of tarot cards, this reminds me of the moon card, by the way. It's a card of psychological crisis. As I approach the top, a mighty booming resounds from the other side of the mountain like ore being pounded. The sound gradually swells and echoes thunderously in the mountains. As I reach the pass, I see an enormous man approaching from the other side. 2 bull horns rise from his great head, and a rattling suit of armor covers his chest, and his black beard is ruffled and decked with exquisite stones. The giant is carrying a sparkling double axe in his hand, like those used to strike bulls before I can recover from my amazing fright. The giant standing before me. I look at his face. Faint, pale, and deeply wrinkled, his almond-shaped eyes look at me astonished. Horror takes hold of me. This is Izdubar, the mighty, the bull man, and he stands and he looks at me, and his face speaks of consuming inner fear. And his hands and knees tremble, and Izdubar, the powerful bull, trembling. Is he frightened? And I call out to him. So Izdubar is another name for Gilgamesh. We haven't done Gilgamesh. We should, though. It might have came up every now. It might have came up when we did the Noah's Ark episodes. Anyhow, Izdubar is just another name for Gilgamesh. Niana. Okay, so, Izdubar. Remember, he's calling out to him. Oh, Izdubar, most powerful, spare my life and forgive me for lying like a worm in your path. And Izdubar says, I do not want your life. Where do you come from? Jung says, I come from the West. You come from the West. Do you know of the Western lands? Is this the right way to the Western lands? And he says, Jung says, I come from the Western lands whose coast washes against the great Western Sea. And Izdubar says, does the sun sink in that sea, or does it touch the solid land in its decline? And I say, well, the sun sinks far beyond the sea. Beyond the sea, what lies there? Outer space, motherfucker! No, Jung says, there's nothing but empty space there. As you know, the earth is round, and moreover, it turns around the sun. And Izdubar says, damned one, where do you get such knowledge? So there is no immortal land where the sun goes down to be reborn? Are you speaking the truth? And his eyes flicker with fury and fear, and he steps a thundering pace closer, and I tremble. O Izdubar, most powerful one, forgive my presumptuous, but I am really speaking the truth. I come from a land where this is proven science, and where people live who travel round the world with their ships. Our scholars know through measurements how far the sun is from each point of the surface of the earth in a celestial body that lies unspeakingly far out in unending space. Izdubar says, unending, did you say? The space of the world is unending, and we can never reach the sun? Most powerful one, insofar as you are mortal, you can never reach the sun. And I see him overcome with suffocating defeat. I am mortal. I shall never reach the sun and never reach immortality. So Gilgamesh's bit is that he's like this mighty king, and he like fucks everything up because he's so rough and tumble with shit. And anyhow, he and his buddy go out, and they are trying to find the Mesopotamian, like the original Noah. You know, like Noah comes from an older story, the story of Noah and the Ark and all this other kind of stuff. So he goes out and he's trying to find his dude that matches Noah, because Noah was rewarded immortality for surviving the flood by God, I should really get a book or something to do this. Is it Akura Mazda? Akura Mazda, I think, gives Noah immortality. So Gilgamesh is trying to seek immortality. So he goes and he actually finds this Noah character. His name's not Noah. I can't remember what his name is. Fuck. I'm going to do some homework or something. Anyhow, that's why he's looking for immortality in Jung's story here. He smashes his axe with a powerful clanging blow on the rock. And he says, "Begone, miserable weapon, you are not much use, and how should you be of use against infinity, against the eternal void, against the unreplenishable? There is no one left for you to conquer. Smash yourself for what it's worth." In the west, the sun sinks into the lap of the glowing clouds in bright crimson. So go away, sun, thrice damned god, and wrap yourself in your immortality. Then he snatches the smashed pieces of his axe from the ground, and he hurls it towards the sun. "Here you have your sacrifice, your last sacrifice." He collapses and sobs like a child, and I stand shaking and hardly dare to stir. Izdubar says, "Miserable worm, where did you suckle on this poison?" And I say, "Oh, Izdubar, most powerful one, what you call poisons in science, our country, we are nurtured on it from youth, and that may be the reason we haven't properly flourished and we remain so dwarfish. When I see you, however, it seems to me as if we are all somewhat poisoned." Izdubar says, "No stronger being has ever cut me down. No monster has ever resisted my strength. But your poison worm, which you have placed in my way, has lamed me to the marrow. Your magical poison is stronger than any army of Tiamat." Tiamat is a Mesopotamian dragon. God, I don't know if I have to explain this. I'm not going to do it. So Marduk was this Mesopotamian hero, sky god. And Tiamat was his mother, and she was a dragon. And he fought this dragon. We talked about this, the sky god that fights the dragon in mythology. We've talked about it over and over again. But anyhow, Marduk fights Tiamat and kills Tiamat, his mother, and he uses her body to build the world. So that's what Gilgamesh is talking about. "No monster has ever resisted my strength, but your poison worm, which you have placed in my way, has lamed me to the marrow. Your magical poison is stronger than the army of Tiamat." He lies as if paralyzed, stretched out on the ground. "Your gods help here. Lies your son, cut down by the invisible serpent's bite in his heel. Oh, if only I had crushed you when I saw you and I never heard your fucking words, oh Izdubar. Great and pitiful one, had I known that my knowledge would cut you down, I would have held my tongue. But I wanted to speak the truth. You call poison truth. Is poison truth, or is truth poison? Do not again, it's like I did this on purpose. Talking about censorship. "Oh, Izdubar, night is falling, and it will get cold up here. Shall I fetch you help from men?" And Izdubar says, "Let it be, and answer me instead." And I said, "But we cannot philosophize here of all places. Your wretched condition demands help." And Izdubar says, "I say to you, let it be." It's like that Beatles song. Did Beatles did a song like that? Let it be, let it be. I don't know. I'm not a Beatles fan. I fucking hate the Beatles. "If I should perish this night, so be it. Just give me an answer. I'm afraid my words are weak, if they are to heal." And Izdubar says, "They cannot bring about something more grave. The disaster has already happened. So tell me what you know. Perhaps you even have a magic word that counteracts this poison." And I say, "My words, O most powerful one, are poor and have no magical powers." "No matter. Speak," Izdubar says. "I don't doubt that your priests speak the truth. It is certainly a truth. Only it runs contrary to our truth. And Izdubar says, are there then two sorts of truth? And I say, it seems to me to be so. Our truth is that which comes to us from knowledge of outer things, and the truth of your priest is that what comes to you from inner things. Is it Dubar half sitting up? That was a salutary word. And I said, I am fortunate that my weak words have relieved you. Oh, if only I knew how many more words that can come up to help you. It has now grown cold and dark. I will make a fire to warm us. Do that, as it might help, Izdubar says, and I gathered the wood and I lit a big fire. The holy fire warms me. Now tell me, how did you make a fire so swiftly and mysteriously? And Jung said, all I needed are matches. Look, they are small pieces of wood with this special substance on the tip. Rubbing them against the box produces fire, and Izdubar says, this is astonishing. Where did you learn this art? Everyone has matches where I come from, but this is the least of it. We can also fly with the help of useful machines. Then Izdubar says, you can fly like birds? If your words do not contain such powerful magic, I would say to you that you were lying. He goes, I'm certainly not lying. I have a timepiece, for example, which shows the exact time of day. This is wonderful. It is clear that you have come from a strange and marvelous land. You certainly come from the blessed western lands. Are you immortal? Immortal? There is nothing more mortal than we are. What? Not even you are immortal, and yet you understand such arts? Unfortunately, our science still has yet to succeed in finding methods against death. And Izdubar says, who taught you such arts? In the course of centuries, men have made discoveries. In the course, Izdubar says, but this science is awful magic that has lamed me. How can it be that you are still alive even though you drink from this poison every day? We've grown accustomed to this over time because men get used to everything. We're still somewhat lame. On the other hand, this science also has great advantages, as you've seen. What we've lost in terms of force have rediscovered many times through mastering this force of nature. And Izdubar said, isn't it pathetic to be so wounded? For my part, I draw my own force from the force of nature, and I leave the secret force to the cowardly conjurers and the womanly magicians. If I crush another skull to pulp, that will stop his awful magic. But don't you realize that how the touch of our magic has worked upon you? Terribly, I think. Unfortunately, you are right. Now you perhaps see that we had no choice. We had to swallow the poison of science, otherwise we would have met the same fate as you have. We'd be completely lamed. If we encountered the unsuspecting, the unprepared. The poison is so insurmountably strong that everyone, even the strongest, and even the eternal gods, perish because of it. If our life is dear to us, we prepare to sacrifice a piece of our life force rather than to abandon ourselves to certain death. And Izdubar says, I no longer think that you come from the blessed western lands. Your country must be desolate, full of paralysis and renunciation. I yearn for the east where the pure source of our life-giving wisdom flows. We sit silently in the flickering fire in the cold night, and Izdubar groans and he looks up at the starry sky. Most terrible day of my life, unending, so long, wretched magical art. Our priests know nothing, or else they would have protected me from it. Even the gods die, he says. Have you no gods anymore? No words. No, words are all we have. But are these words powerful? So they claim, but no one notices nothing of this. And Izdubar says, well, we do not see the gods either, but we believe that they exist. We recognize their workings in natural events. And I say, science has taken from us the capacity of belief. Well, you have lost that too. Then how long do you live? And Jung says, we live thus with 1 foot in the cold and 1 foot in the hot, and the rest come what may. And Izdubar says, you express yourself darkly. It is also with us. It is dark. Can you bear it? And Jung says, not particularly well. I personally don't find myself at ease with it. For that reason, I have set out to the east, to the land of the rising sun, to seek out the light that we lack. Where then does the sun rise? And Izdubar says, the earth is, you say, completely round. Thus the sun rises nowhere. And I said, do you have the light that we lack? And Izdubar says, look at me. I flourish in the light of the Western world. From this, you can measure how fruitful this light is. But if you come from such a dark land, then between of such overpowering light, could you blind just as well as somewhat blind? If you, your light was fantastic as you are, then I will be careful. Izdubar says, you do well by this. And I say, I long for your truth. And Izdubar says, as I long for the western lands, I warn you. And silence descends. It is late at night, and we fall asleep next to the fire.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
If you're considering supporting the show on Subscribestar, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on over there. The degree of the Red Archive, which is the $1 a month, you get access to some bonus audio, but there's also 50 plus hours of archived episodes. These are older episodes. They're not on the stream anymore. It's the only place to find them is in the Red Archive. There's a $3 a month tier called the Fellowcraft degree, and that has 30 and 40 hours of exclusive Fellowcraft episodes. You get access to all of those. And those have never been on the stream. Those have never been on the normal show. They're exclusive only to the Fellowcraft degree. $5. The $5 tier is the degree of the Red Mark. And so for $5, you get the archived episodes, you get the Fellowcraft episodes, and then you are able to get some swag, bookmarks, temporary tattoos, exclusive tarot cards, all different kinds of stuff coming out every once in a while. And then for $10 a month, you become a knight in the degree of the Vessel of the Art. So the Vessel of the Art degree, you get the archived episodes, the exclusive episodes, the swag, and then you get like the keystone of all swag. You get your very own Vessel of the Art, which is a full-size, fully glass mason jar with the Abracast sigil logo on it. So if you're considering helping out and supporting the show, that's where you do it, and that's what you get. If you look around on Abracast.com, you can also find a PayPal donate button. So if you don't want a monthly thing, another monthly thing to take care of, but you're like, hey, Towers is a good guy. I want to buy him a drink. You shoot me, not a coffee. I don't drink that shit. but you could PayPal me some money. All of your help is appreciated, and yeah, that's it. I'm John. This is it. Like I said, I'm okay.